Hi everyone, so this is the last day of the lecture. So tomorrow we will have the final exam. So I want to provide some basic sense of the chapters or the knowledge we covered so far, and provide some basic review for the final exam with some information of the exam. So tomorrow you will have the final exam, which is the only exam you will do in this semester. So it's about like 17% of your total grade. So yeah, make sure that you have some good concentration and good internet connection without some the interruptions for your final exam. So you will have the 50 questions as 35 multiple questions as you did so far, and the 15 true and false questions, yeah, also as you did so far. So there is no surprising format of the questions because there is no essay question or there is no other types of the questions other than multiple questions and the true and false questions. And also the exam must be fully finished within 100 minutes. Without, if you don't have some academic accommodations, you will have 100 minutes. So 100 minutes is quite a long time, but I decided to use 100 minutes because you always had like 2 minutes per one question. So you always had 10 minutes for the 5 questions. So for the consistency, I decided to give you 100 minutes. So you can finish it early if you finish it like earlier than like 60 minutes or 70 minutes. You can finish any time if you fully answered all the questions. But after 100 minutes, you will not be able to answer the remaining questions. So even though the time is very enough, make sure that you are finishing the right pace of the questions. And also exam questions will be taken from all of the 16 chapters in the lecture, in the textbook, and other. So I think we just covered the lecture and the textbook. So you will need to read through all the 16 chapters and the lecture video and the lecture slide I uploaded yesterday. I mean 2 days ago. Yeah, right. So watching this review will be only very partial or very some point or some parts of the exam preparation. So find the best place to keep secure internet connection, which will be very important for you tomorrow, because usually it's very unexpected. So there are some possibilities of the unexpected accidents, such as internet crash or the computer problems or something. But it's your responsibility to find the best place with the greatest signal of the internet and check your computer system again so that you can have you may not have some the interruptions by the computer crash or something. And it's very common, yeah, it's very too common when basic knowledge that you never discuss and share your exam with other students. You should not and you must not communicate with other students about the questions and then ask the others. So yeah, these are the basics and the purpose of the course review. So this is just very basic review. So I will cover the contents of the all 16 chapters, but this is just divided, like designed to provide the overview of the 16 chapters, that what we learned so far and what would be some important parts of each chapter, and providing some examples of possible exam questions at the end of the review. So yeah, I'm emphasizing this one again because the exam questions will be taken from all the chapters and the lecture slides and the textbook. So this review will be very minimum for you just to remind you what we learned so far. So this review lacks of the very details, because for the details of the chapter and the lecture slide, you may need to come back to the lecture slide and the textbook again if you want to fully understand all the contents or all the materials I provided in this class. Anyway, these are just like simple warnings or the breaking points, and I want to start from the first chapter, understanding social problems. Understanding social problems. So we covered that what are the social problems. So social problem is perceived to the large amount of the people, the public. So if it is publicized or attracted the attention of the public, such as the social agents, I mean government or policymakers or academia or the media, they can be the social problem in the subject component. If it is considered as a big social problem because of the high tendency, like the Lyme disease of the US and all around the disease, and if there are so many people who are infected by the Lyme disease, because of the high number of the disease, it can be considered as a social problem by the objective component. And in the social constructionism's view, they weigh on more about the subjective component than the objective component. So how the people's perception perceived about the social problem is more important in the social constructionism. So in social constructionism, subjective component is more important, and some same social problem can be interpreted and perceived or even criticized in the different ways by the views or by the different sociological explanations by the functionalism, conflict theory, and the symbol interactionism. As we covered those three major theories in all the chapters, so I think you are familiar with that. And what are the features of the functionalism usually? Conflict theory and the symbol interactionism. Functionalism is usually the macro theory emphasized on the positive points of the social problem, even though these are the crimes or other disease or something. They try to find some like their functions make the society more stable, or even the find or the generate jobs. And in contrast, the conflict theory try to think about the pervasive inequality or the negative points of the social inequality by the unequal distribution or inequalities in the social demographic characteristics. And also the symbol interactionism is a little bit far from those two counterparts in the functionalism and the conflict theory, because the symbol interactionism is very micro theory, way on the interactions of the individuals and how they communicate and how they perceive or they accept those social problems. So these are some basis of the basis of the sociological explanations about the social problems. And social problem is very persistent in any society, but it can be changed over time. Even though we have the same type of the social problems such as crime or domestic violence, domestic violence in the ancient society or the earlier time of the US in the colonial period and the recent period, it would be very different, because the domestic violence was not a big social problem in some super many years ago, but in these days domestic violence can be considered a very serious and result in the imprisonment and other heavy punishment. And there are research methods of the social problems as survey, experiments, observation, field research, and using data. So these, each of the research methods have its own positive and negative points. I recommend to review those things so that we can see what are strengths or negative things and what is the most appropriate method for specific situation. Right? So the poverty. So there are several measurements of poverty. The poverty line is 3 times like 3 times of the cost of the minimum diet for the family, usually for individuals. So it is considered as the official rate or official poverty line, but there are some criticisms about the poverty line because it doesn't apply some other the consumption such as electricity or housing or other things. So just accounting for the minimal diet is not a very specially accounting the rate of the poverty or the degree of poverty. And then episodic poverty, supplemental poverty, and like a twice poverty line are some measures of the poverty you may need to check about. And the demographics of the poverty. So poverty is not universal or equally distributed to everyone. So which race is the most typical poor person in the US? So in myth or in the like a common sense of like we think that the people of color are some type of some typical poor person. However, because of the population composition, the non-Latino whites are the most typical person who are poor, because the non-Hispanic whites are about 66%. So because of their high proportion in the population, if we pick up some like random people, or if you pick up one people in the whole US, some white people would have some like a higher chance of the choose as the like a poor people or something. So this is just the like probability issue. Anyway, so what are some demographic patterns of the poverty by the race, ethnicity, gender, and age and region? We saw that people of color are more likely to in terms of the rate. Within that race, maybe some percent of the some race would have a higher rate of the poverty, and gender, because of the like female are more likely to be discriminated or prejudiced and have lower income. Maybe the females are more likely to be poor, and the age, in terms of the age, the elderly may have some better the social support. Maybe the religion or the region, certain residents are more likely to be poor compared with the other parts like east or west or north. There are sociological theories of the poverty, as functionalism, conflict theory, individualistic, structural, and integrated view. So functionalism say that inequality is necessary, but the conflict theory is the stratification, and the inequality is neither necessary nor inevitable because of the pervasive inequality in the society. And there are individualistic and structural and integrated view. So individualistic view is blaming the individuals because they are just poor, because they are lazy and they are not motivated. And structural view is saying that those the lack of the job opportunities and the lack of the discrimination and prejudice are the main sources of the poverty. And the integrated view is the combined view of the individualistic and the structural view, like both admitting both factors. And they say that the poverty is the result of those two parts. And the consequences of poverty. So we see that poverty is not very positive to the individuals, because these are very negative factors for the family, health, care, education, housing, and homelessness, and crimes, and so on. So what are what types of the anti-poverty programs in the US have? So there are many anti-poverty programs, such as helping the homeless and housing or further education, and we can see what are some good anti-poverty programs or what are not good anti-poverty programs. But it's very hard to determine what is good and what is better, or what is worse or something. But we may need to see what are some possible anti-poverty programs for the US poverty. Racial and ethnic inequalities. So race is a more biological term, but ethnicity is more cultural and cultural term. Biologically, and they are socially constructed term as the division of the people. So this race and ethnicity is one main source of the prejudice and discriminations, because we perceive that some person basis on their skin color. But there are many limitations of the dividing the people by the skin color. And also there is prejudice can be explained by the very many theories, as authoritarian, frustration, social learning, and group theory. And what are some possible examples of individual and institutional discriminations? We see many individual discriminations in our daily life. If we meet the people in the restaurant and have some like a very negative views toward the people of color, that's kind of the individual the discrimination. But if there are some like very main or macro systems of the inequality or in the discrimination, we see they are the institutional discrimination, such as discrimination in the housing and health and care and other discriminations. And we can see the hidden toll and the white privilege. So people of color may have the hidden toll because of the accumulated disadvantage by the prejudice and the discrimination. However, whites are less likely to be impacted by their skin of color, because they may not need to worry about their skin of color in the promotion and the application of the jobs. The inequality can be explained by the biological inferiority and the cultural deficiencies and the structural problems. So their own views have like a positive or negative points, but each of the viewpoints can criticize each other. So there are many viewpoints in this factor. The gender inequality is also, the sex is the biological term, and the social differences are on the gender. So we can see the roots of the differences as the gender, biological, cultural, structural roots. And the critics, there are so many critics of the biological explanations because they think the gender makes some inferiority or superiority. But if solely the biological factor may not explain those differences, so maybe you may need to check about that. And there is also various backgrounds of the gender inequality and the crime, like sex segregation, sexism, discrimination, and prejudice, and household work burden. And then women have higher risk of the victimization or the rape or the sexual harassment by the power distribution or the power differences. Sexual orientation and inequality. So this is about their sexual orientation as what on gender or which sex is their preferred sexual partner or in their social orientation. So we see there heteros or homosexuals, bisexuals, and transgenders. Homosexuality is widely spread in the whole history and the whole society. So it's not very surprising that we have about some percent of the homosexuals. And what are backgrounds of the sexual orientation? There are biological, social, and cultural factors. And there are also negative views and attitudes about homosexuals, called heterosexualism. And there are many inequalities of the based on the sexual orientation, especially for the homosexuals or bisexuals or transgenders. So there are many types in that, but even because the same-sex marriage is legalized, so official discrimination are prohibited, but we cannot say the whole of the discrimination toward the same-sex marriage is gone, because there are still discrimination and a prejudice in the like a softer or gentler format. Okay, so aging is a natural process. So most of us will live until old age if we don't die prematurely. And maybe most of us don't want to die early because we want to live long even though we are very religious or something. So the term aged or elderly is not a very universal definition, because in some country younger age can be considered old, because some countries have a very low life expectancy. So in that part of the country or the society in the world, some like 50 years old can be very, very old because their life expectancy is about 40 or 45 because of the disease or very bad health condition. And multiple dimensions of aging was covered there. So chronological age, biological age, psychological aging, and the social aging. Sociological theories of the aging describes about aging as disengagement, ageism, and the activity theory. And what are the contributions or limitations of the theory? So I want you to look that again. That what are the main explanations and what are the criticisms of each theory. So we have increased life expectancy and ageism and health issues and success of aging issues covered in that chapter. So life expectancy is very high in the US, but there are the differences. I mean the disparities in the life expectancy, because the people of color and lower social class may have the lower life expectancy. And the ageism is very big discrimination in their workplace in other places, because the aged persons are seen in the negative ways. And the health issues, because the aged persons are more likely to have the more serious illness and a large number of the illnesses. And what is success of aging, you can see that in there. And there are other problems such as the health problem, long-term care system, which are like a substandard long-term care system, the ageism, and other problems. And the drug is also the big problem in the US, because there are legal drugs as well as the illegal drugs. But it's very hard to say that illegal drugs are more dangerous than the legal drugs, because the legal drugs are killing many of the people. So there are also the demographic patterns of the drug use, such as the socio-demographic patterns of the illegal drug use or other things. And there are also biological, psychological, and the sociological explanations of why we use the drug and what are the social problems of the drugs and the alcohol. And we need to see what are appropriate strategies for the war on drugs. And the crime. The crime is a matter because it's kind of violence damages the persons or the properties, but it's very hard to define how much harmful, or is it like more harmful or more offensive than the legal things, such as the smoking in that area would be very harmful for the health of the other people, but it's not illegal. But yeah, it's not considered as a crime. But so it's like the socially constructed theme, because some actions or some customs are not considered as crime, but maybe some considered in crime in other society. But anyway, we are talking about the U.S. context, so we are talking about some like violences or homicide or other things. And there are myths about the crime, like the kill, like a threat or the concern about the killed by the stranger is very high compared with the earlier the factor. And there are some various measures of the crimes like UCR, UCVS, and different survey. And there are sociological theories of crime as disorganization, anomie, differential association, social bonding, labeling, group conflict, feminist, and radical theory. And in the criminal justice system, we see that these are some like there are the innate inequality in the court or prison and other things. So you might need to see. We may need to see the details in the criminal justice system in the lecture slide and textbook. The sexual behaviors. So after sexual revolution, trends of sexual behaviors has been changed a lot in more liberal ways, more than other than on the conservative ways. Even though the AIDS and HIV has some impact on the conservative views, but still we have very high acceptance about the premarital sex or the extra or other trait, but we have some like a differentiation for the teenage pregnancy. So, or we cannot say this issue in one word or a very simple word, but these are some big changes after sexual revolution. And social problems of sexual behaviors like abortion, prostitution, and pornography. So abortion is illegal in most of the states, but just when they have some health problems because of the pregnancy. If they don't have some problems in the health, the abortion, even though it's legal, the legal abortion is very hard in most of the states. And prostitution and pornography, there are both positive points and the negative points based on their viewpoints, but it's not easy to define it in one way as positive or negative. Changing the family. So family is very universal social institution and very starting point of the socialization of every people, almost the people. So nuclear family is declined a lot, but still this is a very basic form or main norm of the US family. But still there are diverse families as extended family or single parent family or cohabitation or like a same-sex married couples like that. So marriage is a major format of the forming family, but based on social demographic characteristics, such as the people of color or lower class families are more likely to have the divorce and less likely to marry. So there are many differences or inequalities in based on their people of color. And what are the explanation of the major sociological theories? So divorce and cohabitation, well-being in marriage, and violence. Different rates of the marriage by race are the inequalities or the differentiations of the social problems or social issues in the family. Schools and education. School is also very basic or very early stage social institution because from their kindergarten or the daycare center, they can start their socialization. And so these are some like very important format of the socialization and the social institution, but this is also source of perpetuated inequality because of the education quality can be matter for the development or their the intellectual challenges. The quality of the education is very, very important because it can change their condition of life from their early life stages. However, the good quality of education is very, very expensive in the U.S. So this is also the very important background of the inequality started from their earlier stage of life. And there are the theories of the education as functionalism, complete theory, and symbolic internationalism. Functionalism say that education is very, very functional, and it just locate the people who are in need and who are in the more appropriate place. So smart people should be placed in the better paid and the highly paid jobs. The complete theory says that the inequality exists in the U.S. may be reflected in the education system as well. So there are also symbolic internationalism as they see the interactions in the school and educational matters, and there are also school segregation because of the residential segregation issue. Also, because of the residential segregation, some people live in the very rich area, usually white, and some people, usually people of color or lower class people, live in that area together. So they may have some like a more white school or more people of color school. And there are many discrepancies and inequality in the school funding based on the budget level of each county or community. So there are many the big issues of the quality of the education based on their region or county or state. And there are also school violence like bullying or harassment and social class in the admissions and the graduation, because whites and the wealthier family are more likely to graduate within 6 years compared with other counterparts, and the campus violence. And there are many solutions to reduce the social problems of the inequality in schools, like school vouchers or charter school, but nobody can say which one is ultimately better or not better, words like that. So we will need to see what are the best or the good or appropriate actions for the school and education. And work and economy, which are the very basic system of getting income. So socialism, capitalism, and democratic socialism are the major sources of the economic systems, and the sociological explanation of work and economy. So these are functionalism and the functionalist theory and the symbolic internationalism. So functionalists think that the work and economy is very, very essential because they provide the goods in the society, and maybe they can provide some income for most of the people who are in needs. And then the complete theory think that this is just like a conflict between the ruling class and the employees, and there are the innate inequalities because of the bourgeoisie, who are usually the upper social class, owns the means of the production, usually knowledge or corporation or factory, and they are working for their benefits, so they are exploiting the employees usually. And there are also problems in the work and economy, like by the globalization, the U.S. citizens may lose the wage and the jobs in the like other countries who speak English, and with decline, the labor unions may lose the premiums of the union members. Unemployment by the differentiated by their race and the social class, economic inequality, and the workplace crimes. The health is a very big issue because there is high, strong linkages between the social class and the health. So lower class and people of color are more likely to have a large number of illnesses and more serious illnesses. There are many problems of health or healthcare system in the U.S. because even though U.S. is a leading or super powerful country, with like a leading capitalism country and has a wealth, super high wealth level and the high expenditure level, like ranked to first place compared with other countries in the medical expenditures, but there are many health indicators like behind, like even though the US spend like a highest level of the medical expenditure, they have like average level of the infant mortality and the other morbidity issues. So there are many health disparities issues. So as we mentioned so far, the race and the people like race and the ethnicity and the social class are like a major explanations of the health and healthcare disparities. And because of the high cost of the healthcare, because of the health insurance as a private health insurance, like a free to pay as you go, so high cost of medical expenditure is a big burden for the poor or the people of color. And what are possible social policies you may need to see, and what are the appropriate and what are good solutions for that. And urban and rural problems. So urbanization is a major process of the industrialization because there are more factories and corporations in the urban area. So people move from the rural area to the urban area. Theories of urbanization and class cities. So functionalism is the weighing on the positive point of urbanization, but conflict theory also criticized the urbanization as the main source of the inequality and the people of the right quality of the poor people in the urban area. So simple internationalism is the major interaction in the cities and or the other rural places. And what are social problems of urbanization? So we say that the crowdedness, so residential crowding or housing crowding would be very big source of the social problems in the urban area. And also there are social problems in the rural areas because they are usually deprived, lower quality of life, and more domestic violences. Population and environment. So there are many explanations of population growth and environment. So there are positive points of the population growth and also negative points of the population growth as well as the population decline. And there are components as the like birth rate, mortality, migration, and there are some current issues of the population environment as there are many backgrounds. So we say that environmental racism as the people of color or lower class people are more likely to be damaged in the disasters or environmental changes. So we need to see some possible solutions. And what are sociological explanation of the war and terrorism? U.S. has been at war about 20% of the whole U.S. history, and there are some positive points the functionalists say because they increase the solidarity, and there are some like conflict theory and the simple internationalism working about the war and terrorism. And what are impacts of war and social problems? So there are many victims of the war as civilians and the veterans. And veterans are more likely to be suffered from the unemployment and other mental health problems and need more cares or support from the government. And what are impacts of war and social problems? So, and what are solutions to prevent the war and the terrorism? So, U.S. military budget is a big problem because it's extremely high and criticized in the effectiveness and the efficiency. Because even though it costs a lot, the supporters of the military budget, but they say this is very important to secure the national security. But it criticized that this is very poor job creator. Compared with the in terms of the consumption level, it's paying super amount of money, weighing about 20% or 40% of the federal income tax. But it doesn't create the jobs compared with the amount of money spent in the area. So possible forms of final exam. So I will take the very similar format of the exam or the questions in the quiz. So finding the right or finding wrong, find the best answers. And maybe the good strategy is to read all the answers carefully because there are some the sentences in the earlier part of the sentence is right, but the later part would be not right. So I want to take some enough time because I gave very long time, like 100 minutes. So read the questions and the possible answers very carefully, and then see and compare what is the best answer. And theories of sociological explanations. So we covered the sociological explanation in about all the chapters. So I want to see what are some like a functionalism perspective or conflict theory perspective or symbol international perspective in that social problem. And there are true false questions. So finding which is more, I think choosing if it is more true or more false. So I try my best to have or make the clear selections in the true and false questions as well. And the matching the keywords what are the right explanation and what is the right term of that situation like that. So there are no surprising formats. So please don't be worried about that. Don't worry about that, and take your time and then read the lecture slide and textbook again and again to see what are the senses of the social problems. Okay, thank you for your time and good luck in your exam. Thank you.